Shalom, welcome. I'm Rabbi Robyn Frisch, and this is the Mazel Pups podcast. If you're Jewish or Jewish, however you define that, and you love dogs, this is the podcast for you. Today's guest is Greg Fox. Now, Greg, I obviously originally met you and your family a few years ago when I worked with Avery, your oldest daughter, for bat mitzvah, and then I had the joy of officiating her bat mitzvah. And then again, more recently, when your second daughter, Sienna, at her bat mitzvah, I got to work with her and officiate as well. So I've gotten to be with your family for some really significant life cycle events. But I want to go back just not too long ago. I think it was about 14 months ago that Sienna had her bat mitzvah. Yeah. And as you and I were talking just one day and preparing for that, and then we got off subject and we're talking about different things. And you mentioned that you were now working at the Voorhees Animal Orphanage, which we'll go into that and why you did that and what it's like. And you were just so enthusiastic about the work you're doing, and it was really exciting. And then I told you about Mazel Pups, and I was just like, we got to figure out how to connect these.
For sure.
And so you wrote me a wonderful article about the Voorhees Animal Orphanage. It's at mazelpups.com. I hope people will check that out. Again, it just made me realize how powerful this change was in your life and how powerful for you what you're doing is in your life. To me, it feels like the true Mazel Pups, Jewish boy story. Yeah. So now that I have this podcast, I finally have the opportunity to take advantage of knowing you and get to hear about you, not just as the loving Jewish husband and dad who I've normally experienced, but also as someone who's really doing important and wonderful work to help dogs. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And before we get to talking about your life and your work, I have 4 questions that I always ask everyone. Yep. And the first one is, do you personally currently have a dog or dogs?
So I do. I have 2 dogs right now. I have about a 12-year-old Rhodesian Ridgeback mix named Kai and a 1-year-old Shar-Pei mix named Tucker.
Can you share, I'm sure you have many, but a fun fact or two about your dogs?
Sure. So these aren't real facts, so don't fact check them.
Okay.
So Kai is, and you'll meet Kai, but he's a very sweet dog, but unfortunately he's not that smart. And so the fun fact for Kai is, and Sienna came up with this, he doesn't have a brain. He has 2 hearts.
Ah.
So that's Kai's fun fact. And Tucker's fun fact is that it's no mistake that it rhymes with mother blank blank. He's a puppy.
Yes. we say things about
yes
our dogs similar too. And, I always say to people, it's like kids, whatever they're like, you could have either the best behaved dog or the craziest dog, and you just love them the same. Like they're your dog, and it shouldn't be any different. So I get it. Yeah. So what about Judaism? What is it that you like the most about Judaism, besides your daughter's bat mitzvahs, of course?
Sure. I would say, well, in recent light, I think a lot of us, well, not to get into that whole, but I think a lot of us experienced some. I don't want to say a fringe environment of how religious I am, but after October 7th, I certainly, and I think a whole lot of people who fall into that category certainly found their place in the world and the true importance of Judaism, and the fact that the thing that I love about it the most is it unites us all immediately without any further conversation. And I think that is something that is so unique and so special.
What's your favorite Jewish holiday and why?
It'll sound cheesy, but I hate to say, I love Hanukkah. I love giving, and I love seeing the faces when you give. And so being able to give gifts in a way that is encouraged, not just spoiling, I look forward to it all year, probably more than the kids do.
So back to dogs.
Yes.
So obviously, as you just shared, you have 2 now.
Yes.
Did you have dogs growing up?
No.
No.
So
when was your first dog?
Wait,
let me ask you first.
Yes.
Did you want a dog growing up?
Yes, more than anything in the world.
Okay.
My mom is afraid of dogs. My dad loves dogs. My father had a couple dogs growing up, and then I think my mom was actually chased by a dog when she was a child.
Okay.
I need to confirm that, but she just never got over it, and so we never had kids. So I got my first dog 2 weeks about 2 weeks after my honeymoon.
Was your wife in on this? Was this a joint decision?
She was.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
she was. And actually, I rescued that dog, who's now his name is Bodie, at the shelter where I currently work at, Voorhees Animal Orphanage, VAO. So, yes. But never had one growing up and just couldn't wait to get one.
Now, did your wife have dogs growing
She
up?
did.
She did?
Yeah,
Okay.
she did. She grew up with dogs. Yeah.
And I believe there's a bit of a story with that dog when you discovered what
Yes.
kind of dog it was.
So I brought him home. We had come back from our honeymoon. We had gone and visit a couple times. We found this dog we liked. She went to work. I made arrangements to pick him up. I brought him home. I took him for a walk. This is 21 years ago. And my neighbor said, "Oh my God, you got a dog? He's a pit bull." And I didn't really know what a pit bull looked like back then, and I panicked.
So you just thought he's a cute dog.
I
He's
thought he
lovely,
was
we
a
like
shepherd mix. He was a mix.
Mm-hmm.
He was a mix. And I said, "Oh my God, I got to bring this dog back. We can't have a pit bull." And I called my wife at work and I said, "I'm going to bring this dog back." And she said, "Don't you dare." And thank God I didn't, because that dog changed my life. Literally changed my life.
I have to say, some of the nicest dogs I know are pit bulls.
Oh my God, yes.
Although I have to say, 21 years ago, I would have been scared to have one.
Yes.
So I totally can relate. My brother had one. It was about 18 years. Well, he probably got it about 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Love of his life, Rufus. You know, one of those, his first child. Then he got
Yep.
married, still had Rufus. When he had a human child, my mother was convinced that Rufus was going to like eat this child alive. She was so scared. But Rufus was nothing but sweet with the baby. And 18 years later, unfortunately, Rufus is gone, but my nephew is
Yeah.
alive and healthy.
It's a very similar story with Bodie. I traveled. Prior to this life, I was a road warrior. I was on an airplane every other day and hotels every night. And Bodie would guard the house.
That's nice.
While I was out, and he would sleep during the day when everyone was out, and he would just watch the house. And he, when we brought the baby home, we were a little bit nervous because he was 90 pounds, very big dog, very muscular, and he knew his role, and he would stand underneath anyone who would hold him and just maintain eye contact and just watch his baby.
Oh, that's so
And
sweet.
it was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing to watch.
How did you get involved with the Voorhees Animal Orphanage? And when you did, were you still doing the work you used to do, or was that after?
So I have two daughters, as we know. We live in Voorhees. It's an affluent area, and it's a very easy area to get spoiled. And so I'm very big on trying to give back and trying to maintain a level of balance, for lack of a better word. And so one of the things that I used to do with my kids a lot is I'm just very into, I was a camp counselor growing up, so like I'm very into activities and just downtime to make it busy and whatnot. So we'd go to the beach, we would collect shells, we would paint the shells, and then we would sell the shells, and then we would take the money, we'd go to BJ's discount club and we'd buy treats for the dogs, and then we'd go to the shelter. And so I did a lot of that with the kids. And then during COVID, when I was off of work, Pet Value, which was a local chain of pet stores, had gone out of business or were going out of business. And the last day they were open, I went over there with Sienna, my little daughter, and I said, "Just give me the rest of the store." And I made a couple trips back and forth, just taking it to the shelter, whatever was left. The people in the store were crying. I was crying. It was just one of those days. And when I was taken to the shelter, they had said, "What's your deal? We see you here all the time. You're always doing these things." And I just said, I'm kind of, I'm looking to maybe get into something else. And I know I really love dogs and want to be in the animal business. And I had thought about stopping traveling and just really being home and just trying to. I watched the world during COVID just consume. They couldn't stop. People couldn't stop consuming. And I'm one of them too. I was the first ones to have masks and paper towels and toilet paper stacked up, and I apologize for anyone who didn't get it. But the consumption started to really bother me, and I realized enough taking. It's time to share, and I think that's kind of in a nutshell how it all happened.
So when you were there that day,
Yes.
I know you eventually were on the board. Did that happen that day?
So they
that
asked me
talked to you
that
about
day.
it?
They said, we have a position on the board opening if you would be interested. And I had never really been passionate about anything enough to. So that's kind of how it started. I applied to be on the board and was accepted. and I spent the next few months just trying to volunteer and spend time to figure out how I can help this struggling shelter.
And was your plan still to go back to your corporate world job
So
at that point?
At that point, I was looking to get into the dog business. I was looking at some franchises, opening up maybe a doggy daycare, because again, and this is during COVID, so there was people weren't leaving, they weren't going back,
Right.
so I was going down the path, and I decided I don't know if people are ever going back to work. So I didn't. And then, long story short, I spending time at the shelter, I realized that operationally, there's nothing that I could do to help, and they just need money badly. So
Did they have a development person
no.
at that? They didn't have anyone doing it.
No, the shelters. We're a municipal animal shelter, so we're the old school pound. There were bare bones. We have very few employees, a lot of volunteers. We wear many different hats. So even though I'm the development director, I'm also taking the trash out, and I'm also walking. Whatever it is we need to do, we all do.
It's like being a husband and
It's
a
like
dad.
being a husband and dad. Yes.
So how did you go from being on the board
Yes.
to this becoming your full-time work?
So I really wanted to help, and I knew that I could help raise money. I knew that they couldn't afford to hire me. So basically, we kind of put this: hey, let's try this. Let's make an investment in me. If it doesn't work, I'll pay the investment back. And it was kind of like a free trial.
Okay.
I had all these, and I put together all of these ideas of things that I would do differently, and different types of people or partnerships or corporate or individual, and really just leverage my network and really try to do some good. So fast forward 3 years, and it's working.
So when did you officially? How long were you on the board before you started?
6 months.
And then that's when
Yeah.
you started working.
I started working there January 2nd it's been 2.5 years.
Oh wow! So
Yeah.
tell us some of the things you've
Sure.
done that were new there.
Yeah. So real quick, there's 3 ways we make money. So being a municipal animal shelter, we have contracts with 25 municipalities in New Jersey. Anytime there is an unwanted pet, a stray, a court case, a bite, any unwanted homeless animal, it contractually comes to us. There's another in Voorhees, small town. There's another very large shelter right around the corner from us. They are a private shelter versus a municipal.
Okay.
So they pick up animals from the south. They make matches. We get the dogs that don't work out, essentially. So that's one way. The other way is from adoption fees, and then from fundraising, and that's it. That's the only way for us to make money. And in terms of events, we had development directors. They have events, right? It's a car wash, a walk, lots of little, small, let's call it do-it-yourself programs. You can have a walk, and you spend a Sunday and you try to get a few hundred people there, and it's a ton of work. And at the end of the day, you may raise $1,000, which is a lot of money, but it's a
For
lot
the
of
amount
work.
of time and effort you put
So
into it.
what I try to do is take all of these things and just put my spin on it. So one of the things that it actually will lead right into this, I had a lot of having children in a very Jewish community of B'nai Mitzvah age. I'm getting a lot of people coming to me asking, can we do anything at the shelter for a mitzvah project? And this was a huge opportunity for the shelter, but there's a problem. Our insurance doesn't allow anyone under 21 to volunteer.
Even with a parent.
Even with a parent.
Wow.
Now, the other shelter in Voorhees does with a parent, but they don't have the type of dogs that we have. So we're stuck. So I came up with an idea. Hey, let's try to do walks, but let's try to make it a little bit more individualized. And let's have the B'nai Mitzvah child or student actually do their own fundraising for us. And we ask for an $18 donation for anyone who attends. And then, so I created these mitzvah walks, and I would have the students form their own teams. And if they raise over $1,000, which everyone so far has,
Oh, that's great.
then they'll have a memorial at the shelter in perpetuity. So it's a win-win-win for everyone involved. They get to create their event. The animals win, the shelter wins, the community wins, everybody wins, and it just creates money, it creates awareness, and it's our next level, our next generation of donors and adopters and fosters.
And you've gotten some local publicity about that as well. haven't you?
We have, yes. Yeah, so I've done a couple of the events. each one, I mean, so it's like I said before, a typical walk will raise $1,000. I mean, our first year we did it, we raised 25,000 in the midst of walks, just with a couple students. So things like that. So that's something that I've done that I'm very proud of, and unique. I don't think there's another shelter in the country that does this.
There might be after today.
There might be, yeah. And then the other crazy thing that I did, I decided that I was going to take our blue collar shelter and I was going to turn them into the belle of the ball. And I created a gala called the Pit Ball.
So you've come a long way since that fear about Bodhi. If you
Yes, I have. Yes, Bodhi is the idea behind all of it. So I created this gala, and I actually held it at the mansion in Voorhees, where 20 years ago I was married, and the whole story came full circle. And told the story during my speech. So we have a gala, and it is high network, high impact individuals. We've raised over $100,000 on the 2 times we did it for one night. It's incredible. We get on the news. We get it's just
That's
been
amazing.
And it's my legacy.
So I imagine most of these people never had any connection with VAO before.
No, none of them.
The people you brought in.
Yep.
Wow.
And then I leverage my we get a lot of sponsorships from local companies, of which most of them are my friends, or just colleagues that I've and I try to create even though the goal and the idea and the concept for sponsoring a shelter is you want to give back, but at the same time I want to be able to give back to the sponsors. So I find companies that I really want to work with and share the integrity and share the vision and share our passion, and we'll do things that'll help promote their business as well. Because without them, our supporters know that we're not open.
Right.
So we need to shop and service our supporters as well. So we've done a lot of that, the pit ball, the walks, things like that. I'm always looking for fun new ideas of how to get people together and raise some money for the doggies.
So you mentioned bat mitzvah projects. I know your older daughter Avery, for her bat mitzvah, was involved in cleaning up a beach in Ventnor, New Jersey, where you go, and she collected money also for, I believe, for beaches as well as mammals in need of that.
Yeah.
And so she had a really interesting mitzvah project that was of interest to her. And then Sienna, actually, I think you were already at the VAO.
Yes.
And she did something in connection with that. But can you share about her project with us?
Sure, for sure. So I'd like to just touch on Avery's real fast.
Sure.
So Avery's, my 2 daughters are very different. They actually look like twins, but they're very different. Sienna is all about the dogs and all about the animals. Avery's all about the beach. And she loves the dolphins. She loves the marine life. So in Brigantine, there is the New Jersey Marine Stranding Center. And they do fantastic work all up and down the coast for sea turtles, dolphins, whales, seals. And it's all nonprofit, self-funded. It's a fantastic organization. They do great work. And then we cleaned up our beach, which is a very clean beach, but under the boardwalk, you'd be surprised what you find. So
I don't think I'd want to know.
You don't want to know. And then for Sienna, so she was, we did a mitzvah walk for her. She raised, I think about $4,000. And then we collected supplies all year for her.
Right. That was the other piece I remember. Yeah.
Yes. So, because we need everything, not just money. But
and she was with you when you brought them all.
Yes,
to
yes. Sienna is she's a fixture at the shelter.
So you mentioned that this seems like a lot of dogs that are harder to get adopted, or people might even not come there. They might go to another shelter when they want to adopt, just knowing those dogs will be easier. And it reminds me of many years ago when my son, who's now 24, was preparing to be bar mitzvah. So this was like 11 years ago. I had a motive. I wanted a dog, and my husband wasn't so sure. So I figured I had to get all 3 kids on board, because if we all bugged him, he couldn't say no. Yeah. So I said, why don't we, for your bar mitzvah project, walk dogs? We went to this shelter and we loved it, and we walked dogs for months. And of course, then we convinced my husband and adopted our first dog, who is one of those from down in South Carolina. One of the things I will never forget, the woman saying to us, I believe she was a volunteer at the shelter when we first went, and she was showing us around. And she said, some people come here for years, and they'll do this for years, and other people after a couple months get really burnt out, because they'll see that there are dogs that are here their first time and their second time, and other dogs are getting adopted, and some of them just take a really long time to get adopted out, and it gets so hard for them emotionally that they need really take a break from coming here. And the first time she said it, I thought, oh, that's not going to happen to me. But then I remember a few months into it, while we didn't stop coming until we adopted our own dog, I do remember feeling this is really hard. There were a few dogs that had been there the entire time, and it was just really depressing to see. So my question for you is, because I know you're at the shelter. You're not, in some fancy office somewhere else and separate from what's going on there. It's part of your daily life, and you're involved with the animals, and you care about animals and love animals. How is that for you to have to see that? And is there anything that can be done?
So, God, it's unpacking a lot there. Yes. So let me
Okay, let's go on.
Yes. So let me backtrack for a second. I mentioned before that we have a lot of volunteers that work there. We have an amazing, dedicated team of volunteers. And one of the things that I love the most is the walking of the dogs. Every single one of our dogs gets walked every single day, no matter if it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, Monday, Wednesday, Sunday, 100 degrees or 5 degrees, our dogs get walked every single day. So our shelter is quieter than a lot of kennels, just because they need to get that out. They need that stress.
And that's all volunteers.
That's all volunteers. And they come every single day and walk every day. You see a lot of them come and go. You see, and we have a core group that have been there for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. The ones that go, typically they get that. I don't know. There's a term for it. I don't know if it's compassion fatigue or there's some term that it's very real. We are a no-kill shelter. What that means for people listening and watching, no-kill means that you have to have a live release rate of 90.5%. So for every 100 animals that enter your facility, 90 have to leave alive. And if you maintain that, you maintain your no-kill status. So we never euthanize for space or age.
So only if an animal were very sick.
Well, a lot of times. So we hit 95% this year, which is our highest ever. We get a lot of cats. Kitten season right now is crazy. It's just nonstop animal control. Kittens. Half of them they don't come in alive. They're left, and we get a lot of crazy stories of people leaving animals out in the middle of the winter at our front steps. We come in, they're dead. Like it just happens. So, but we never euthanize for space. And seeing these animals being there for so long, some of them, and this is why I said it's kind of a lot to unpack. Some of them are happier at the shelter than where they were. So for those animals, you don't feel bad, right? Because their tail is wagging and they are ecstatic. They've never been inside. They get treats all day long. They get volunteers come and give them kisses and hugs. And so there are days that that's the best they've ever had. And then
although imagine if they were in someone's home who loved them.
For sure.
We know it could be much better.
We know it
they
could be
might
much
not
better.
know
But
that,
for them, they're happier than when they came in.
Right, it's not depressing, at least.
But for most of them, it's awful, right? It's prison. Yeah. So it's hard to watch. It's hard to see. It's hard to listen to. It's hard. It's really hard. You have to get over it. Unfortunately, you have to develop a little bit of not thick skin, but I mean, there are days we all cry, and it happens. Sorry if I did. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy job. But to see those animals, I kind of want to segue into that if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I've got big dreams, right? I love our shelter. I love our community, but I want to save lives and I want to really make a difference. One of the things that I'm an analyst by trade, and I study and I observe and I look at numbers, and we're budgeting to lose over $200,000 this year. Our costs are up on everything on board, and our donations are down. Our sponsorships are down because everyone is feeling this inflationary crunch. Our surrenders are up 23% this year because people can't afford the cost of dog food or medical care. I can't. It's crazy.
Dogs are expensive.
Very expensive. So one of the things that I have figured out is the cause of some of these major expenses is those dogs that are there for a long time. And most of the time they're senior dogs. They're 9, 10, 11-year-old, 12-year-old dogs. Most of them are pit mixes, great animals. But for whatever reason, they live with us now. They tie up kennels. They cost a lot of money. So I would like to, working on a plan to be able to foster a lot of those animals so that we can take more animals from the south that are getting put down, the puppies, and bring them up, and we can turn the kennels quicker, and we can have higher adoption fees, and we can save more lives and offer a better living experience than what they currently have at some of the at the shelter.
So what would you do with those older dogs? Where would they go?
So I'm looking at purchasing a property where I can house the animals and give them a better life.
So they'd be able to.
So they would be. I would foster them from our shelter. They would come live on a nice big piece of land in the woods and have a creek and until either they get adopted from us or we walk them over the Rainbow Bridge, which we'll have.
Mm-hmm.
So
they'd just be able to live somewhere and it'd be beautiful. And
yes.
They'd have freedom. They wouldn't be sitting in cages.
Yeah.
And
A sanctuary.
So it's a home for them. I mean,
it's I'm looking at creating an assisted living facility for.
And I have never heard of that before. Does it exist other places?
There's a couple of them in the country. There's one in the closest one is in Central Jersey. She's fantastic. Hers is just like it's a nursing home.
Are these? I mean, I have read about like individuals who will like adopt a lot of senior dogs. Is it like that kind of thing?
No, she has a full facility. She has I think 25, 30 dogs. They have pools and everything. She does a lot of work out there. And but there's a couple around the country. There's a guy in Oregon. He has a really cool. He has a really cool compound almost for these animals.
Amazing. I would love to see it as a more common. I mean, the fact that like you can name the few that exist, and you all probably know who each other are.
For sure,
it would be a great model.
I would love to, the way my life and my big dream bigs. I'd love to have multiple of these, different parts of the area or the country.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So, what's the best part of your job?
Giving tours. I love giving tours. I love it.
So is that where people come in who might want to adopt or?
No, so they're all. You have to be invited.
Donors.
You have to be invited for a tour.
Mm-hmm.
So tours that I give.
Okay.
So whether it would just be someone who, either a donor or a sponsor or a corporate company, somehow that I'm just trying to get in.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see us to experience what it is, and I love giving tours because I think I might have mentioned this in my article. I get to see.
Yeah, you did.
People come in. Everyone has walls up, right? Everyone has their insecurities and their personas and whatever it is. But when they walk into a kennel and they see a dog that's crying for them, they just instantly drop to their feet, and you get to see people for who they really are. Yeah. Sometimes I don't like what I see, so it's almost a filtering process. But that is my favorite.
If
part.
I remember correctly, you even mentioned in the article like a lot of them start talking baby talk.
Absolutely, yep. They drop right to come here, little babies.
Oh my goodness,
it's just amazing to witness.
My two dogs sleep in my bed, and a few years ago, my daughter, she was probably like 15, would come in the room every morning and start talking like that to them, and it drove me crazy. I'm like, Tally, stop! But you would see their tails wagging like crazy, and they clearly, she would say they liked it. I'm like, no, they're just doing that because I'm waking up. But I have since read, in fact, that dogs do like, they've studied it, and dogs actually do like that. So it's not just mine.
It drives my wife crazy because it drives her nuts. Yeah.
You've mentioned some of the challenges of your job, obviously, and some of it just what you have to witness on a regular basis. What are the other challenges?
The hardest thing that I had to realize was leaving the corporate world to go nonprofit, especially being a municipal shelter. I mean, there's no voicemails. I get yellow Post-it notes or ripped up piece of paper with the phone number on it. So it's getting. I've had a lot of amazing ideas that I think that I've just challenged internally getting things to work because we're short-staffed and we can't afford to hire anybody else. We have a new building, and we've already outgrown it. So my luxurious office is in the attic, and in the afternoon and summers I have to work from home because it's too hot up there, and there's no windows. So there's definitely challenges and things to get used to.
It's a big change from what you did before.
but seeing the animals go home, seeing people love these animals and creating new memories and getting the follow-up stories, the pup dates, those are great.
And do most people share with you afterwards?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
and we share them on social media so everyone can follow. We have a really strong social media presence, and it really helps keep us afloat.
And is someone on staff able to do that, or is that volunteers?
We have our director of marketing who is self-taught.
Oh, that's great.
And we have about 120,000 Facebook followers. I mean,
wow.
She's really good at what she does.
That's really nice to hear. So let's say one of your daughters or both your daughters say to you at some point, like, I want to do something with dogs, or I want to go help, I want to work, not just volunteer, but I want to work at a shelter in some way. What would you tell them?
Make sure you know what you're getting into, because it's not just playing with dogs. Yeah. It's not. There are days you don't touch dogs, so it's not that. The emotional challenge is real. There are highs and lows. There's no money in it, so you're just not going to get rich doing it, or whoever wouldn't get rich doing it, but you certainly would feel fulfilled. It's a different type of reward, for lack of a better word. Companies are starting to have the volunteer. Everyone do a volunteer day, right. Local charities, and when you do that, you feel good, and you leave home. I get to feel that every day, so it's pretty cool.
Before we finish, and thank you, you've shared so much, I just want to ask if there's anything else that you want to share that I didn't ask you about. Just
would encourage anyone to please do your homework when you're getting an animal, a pet. It is a lifelong commitment, and I don't want to be up here and preach, but there are consequences, and if it doesn't work out, I see what happens when it doesn't work out. And if you are going to adopt, find a shelter that doesn't give you a dog that day, because you really need to. Adopting a dog and then bringing it back is worse than not ever starting with the dog. So I would say do your homework. I would encourage people, please adopt, don't shop. Don't form your own opinions of shelters, of pit bulls, of doodles. I get a lot of doodles in.
Really?
There are a lot of biters.
Interesting.
So just know what you're getting into.
So I do want to ask you, had mentioned that you have great social media, and I know not everyone listening is from this area, but can you tell us how they can
Yes, please. So
follow?
Voorhees Animal Orphanage is vaonj.org. So please follow us.
You're on, I assume, Facebook, Instagram.
Facebook, yeah, we're on all the socials, primarily Facebook and Instagram. Ways to help, ways to support. Certainly adopt. If you can't adopt, you can foster. And if you can't foster, you can donate. And if you can't donate, you can certainly like and share, right? Those are free. Right. And the way that, the algorithms work, the more something is liked and the more something is shared, the more it's spread, the more eyes on it, the more adoptions. I mean, we had a dog that was a story that was picked up, I don't know how, by People magazine. One of our just a sad picture of a dog, and it got posted, and we had someone from, I think it was Massachusetts, came down and got the dog. So likes and shares really help, and they're free.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I love
seeing
you
and talking to
you.
Hello, shalom friends. I'm Bo, one of Rabbi Robyn's dogs and our original Mazel Pup. If you enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a pawesome 5-star rating, and follow us on social media. Thanks for listening.